All right, well, y'all made it.
I'll just be over here in my post-surprise RPG sob, which is apparently a thing that happens to me now. Or always in a surprise RPG.
It's an emotional experience. That was I don't know. It was I felt like it was a bit clunky there at the end, but sometimes I always feel that way, and then I go back and listen to it as I'm editing it, and it's like, oh no, that was actually smoother than I thought it was. But I don't know.
That's almost always the case.
Yeah.
It's just like, how did that go? And then you listen to it and you go, oh, it's fine.
Especially when, people are debating, the architecture of reality to formulate plans to alter time and space and come up with cool things to do on the fly. Like, not everything works as snappy as you think it might.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to debate what to turn crypto into.
This has been the most complete cinematic game experience, I think, from beginning to middle to end. Like, I've done cinematic games before, but usually not with parties that are as invested in it being kind of a cinematic experience in the same way.
At the risk of outing people, how would you describe the average player of the games you've run in the past in terms of play style?
I think that people are there to have a good time. They're there to joke around, and they have characters that they get into in some regards, but it's not like they really fully inhabit them. They will a lot of times sort of project their own knowledge and feelings and emotions into their characters in a way that you all frankly do not. It actually took some adjustment for me personally to be able to realize that you all aren't going to do that. Like when you're inhabiting your characters, you're playing as if you are them with the base of knowledge that they have, and you're making decisions as they would really do in this world. So I really couldn't take for granted that they're just going to kind of intuitively know this because I know that Doug and Kat know this. If that makes sense.
Right. We're not metagaming. We're not.
Well, this is why I when I do play a game, I play a game so I don't have to think as me. So I don't. It's about, for me, it's about stepping outside of, as far from possible from the ordinary thing. So whether it's playing a goblin sharpshooter rogue in D&D, I don't want it to be anything like me. And any other player the next game I played, I want it to be nothing like the previous character. I want it to be completely removed and new. And while admittedly the character of Brett was inspired by real life people that I knew, it was never one person. It was an amalgamation, but I was trying my best to inhabit that space the whole time and not say, what would Doug do? But rather what would this person do? But that's what makes it fun for me. It wouldn't be fun for me to try to, I don't know, for lack of a better word, metagame it.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I can give you a good example. So you all are both very familiar with the Tron universe and how things generally kind of work here. And so if I was playing this game with somebody else, they would probably come in and just sort of intrinsically know that an identity disk can be used as a weapon by turning it on and throwing it at people. Whereas for you all, I had to explicitly demonstrate that or explain that and other things like it. So that took a bit of adjustment for me.
Right. We weren't just like, yay, it's Tron. We're like, this is fucked up.
Well, I think to your credit, I think that's the power of a quote unquote surprise RPG, is that we were, before you even say what the setting is, you're sort of forced to get invested in the character. And it's easier, at least for me. I don't know if it's probably true for Kat, but it was at least easier for me to have a quote-unquote realistic reaction to these strange things after inhabiting Brett's mind space for so long in a normal setting. And then when the crazy thing happens, it's like, well, I already know what normal is. I know what baseline normal is. So when I see something like this, my reaction is blah, or whatever. So when identity discs pop out and they're swinging around, and I'm thinking, oh, this is like Xena. This is like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was, even though in real life I know identity discs can cut through things, it was easier than I would probably than definitely easier than you thought, but certainly also easier than I thought to remove myself from that, because we had spent so much time setting up what the average stuff was.
Yeah.
So suddenly, because I mean, shoot, when we landed, we didn't even know where we were, and it was under a dark sky and like a non-Euclidean landscape, and like vague Lovecraftian monstrosities and mutant people. It
could have been anything.
Yeah, it could have been anything. It was so easy to get swept up in the confusion of it all in a positive way. Not like, oh, I'm frustrated because I don't know what to do, but like, yo, this is so foreign to me.
It's immediately it's life or death, and
Yeah.
and I mean, you're right. The calibration period of being in the world before the surprise happens
Yeah.
it's everything. Like
Yeah.
that's setting home base so everything else can feel like a wild ride.
Yeah. But it did. You did such a good job at anchoring that it was easy, at least for me. At least it was easy to not know what to do and everything, because it's a completely foreign world.
Yeah. I remember when I listened to Kate Was Here and the sort of reveal about that game happening, and just like seeing it sort of like unfold in real time, and getting very excited about the prospect of what was to come. And yes, having sort of the character background leading up to that really added a lot to it and to the appreciation, because like by that point, you know a little bit about the character, and being familiar of the world that she is stepping into, knowing a little bit about that and seeing what the possibilities could be is really exciting. And I wanted to drop you all into a place that looked completely alien, and then have this just moment of complete helplessness where everything was just like happening around you, and like you sort of figured out what the situation was, where you were, but it was done in a very spectacular way that just kind of like took your breath away and like dropped you into the action straight away. And I was pretty happy overall with how that whole process went. I mean, I think it was a little bit clumsy getting you all into the Tron world, but
I found that's in my experience in running games like this, that is always the hardest part. Like getting people to do the thing that triggers the main event.
Yeah.
Whether it was Kate Was Here or Extermination or anything, it's always like, shit, I have to get, like, no matter what happens, they have to be
in spite of all the PSAs.
Yeah.
I have to get in a refrigerator.
Yeah, but if I had to do it again differently, like if I could erase your memory of it and I had to do it again, if you chose not to, I know now of backup ways to do it. But in the moment, there was really only one option.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from the experience of running it and playing it and everything else. But like, so no, I totally like, and also because we're hands on hips, we're professionals, like, so I think because Kat and I had run these games before, we knew there was like, when it became a point where it's like, okay, we have to go do this thing, it was like, oh, we have to go do, sorry, I spent too much time in Brett's headspace that I'm still thinking I can just walk down the street and grab a hot dog. No, there is a thing, there is a story coming, we do have to do this.
Yeah.
So but that should be a given. But I totally understand when you're like, the feeling of like, oh, it could be clunky when you're forced or whatever, but when you have the payoff of that be where we're dropped into this completely unknown situation, as a player and as a character, being in such a weird alien space was just like, to me that was the magic soup that can only be made when you run a game like that. So
and what's more, you didn't just run the game, but you also like created a whole like mechanic that I really love the function mechanic. I think it's super cool. And using the opportunity of doing something based on Tron to create game mechanics that I've never seen. They're like things that are kind of standard in certain kinds of video games, but I've, for whatever reason, never seen in a tabletop game, and certainly someone must have done something like it, but I don't know.
I've never played Mutants and Masterminds or any other superhero games, but I like the limitations of this. The idea of, okay, well, you can really only do like 2 functions at a time, and at first you only get like 3 functions. Very Mega Man-ish, where you
or
go through
slotting materia in Final Fantasy VII or something.
Yeah. But I definitely liked those limitations and trying to think of creative ways to combine things and solve problems.
That said, like, oh gosh, what I wouldn't give to like run a full blown like action sequence, chase sequence. Now that like once you
Oh,
have
it's all unlocked?
like the full unlocked access.
But sure, I mean, yeah, it'd be
But-
crazy, but you can only really do that big blowout thing one time.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Unfortunately, Crypto is like just the slipperiest eel in the barrel.
Right.
So like killing him, but yeah, I mean like once I was like zipping up walls and stuff on a motorcycle, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, like this is my shit. I mean like this premise has legs and probably could exist outside of Tron, I would hazard to guess, in some different conceit. It's really cool.
See, like at the end of Kate Was Here, you were like, "Oh, why don't you make like a module?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean? Like what could I possibly say to explain? Like the gameplay was nothing special. It was just all of like it would just be a Wikipedia. Just go to the wiki and read all the information you want. But here, like you actually could make a loose outline of how you wanted the rules to function and say, hey, people out there that want to play a Tron game, use any system you want, but here's a cool mechanic about users and functions and whatever. And that's like, I feel like that's legit. Like you could like that is definitely something you could put out there. And if anyone wanted to run a game like that, this would be useful as opposed to just, oh, you're a program and, I don't know, go do your thing. Like this unlocks not just like a cool mechanic to have fun, but rather like story possibility, because now it's like, oh, I have 2 abilities. Well, what if I want more? Well, how do you get more? And that can be story seeds to do this and this and this and inspire shit. This would inspire NPC or villain creation, because it's like, oh, if you want that ability, you got to take it from this bad guy. I realize I'm kind of just describing Mega Man, but I think you know what I'm talking
Even
about.
still, Mega Man's premise so good, they've done it a million times over. So
yeah, sure. So, but yeah, getting that basic framework for a tabletop game, I think that's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, this is a really bad idea for me to have never played a game in OpenD6 before, and then immediately come in and start adding new like rules and things to it. But
I think that's a natural thing for a great game master.
But also, OpenD6 emphasis on open, meaning
True.
that it's encouraging you to customize and do weird things with it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's spaces on here for you. There's spaces on here on a character sheet I'm looking right now under extra normal. That's an open.
It's just blank.
That's a blank check for a GM to make anything they want, and you've already done that. But you've added an additional gameplay mechanic on top of it instead of just roll your echo skill. No, you've made it different, and because it fits with the world, and it made sense.
Well, I really like the OpenD6 system because I feel like it doesn't get in the way of telling the story.
Yeah.
It has stats in there that allow you to test abilities when you feel like it's necessary, but it's not like explicitly defined. Like if you want to do this, then you have to test it and you have to succeed at it for that to happen. So there's a lot of flexibility that's there. And then I knew going into this Tron universe that I wanted to really do a lot more than what is portrayed in the movies, as far as like the abilities of programs to be able to manipulate the environment, do different and cool things. And I didn't think it was really, I thought that like the ultimate for that, like your users, you're supposed to be like superheroes in this world, basically. And the ability to take functions off of other programs and turn them against them is just like a really cool concept. And like the ultimate moment for me came, there were so many times when you were going to swap out functions and you were like, oh gosh, I want to do this one, but then I have to like turn this off. But like, what do I do? These are all like so, useful and cool. And there was, a lot of moments like that. And I was like, well, that means that you've got a lot of cool stuff that you can do. And,
right.
And that you're really going to, make good use of it.
At no point did I feel like it's weird. You by doing it this way, you make a feeling of feeling empowered, and at the same time not all powerful. So I think that's a really cool balance. The idea of like, oh, you could do any of them, just not all of them at once, and like that condition alone is very exciting. as a player, at least from my perspective.
It's kind of like in a Metroid game too, where you gradually unlock new powers as you play through the game, and then like for the final like escape sequence, then you get like the ultimate super powerful abilities of
Right.
everything, and then so
That's true. Yeah.
was there anything about the story that you would like clarification on or didn't make sense?
No, I mean, like, I was really consistently impressed by how you gave, like, you took the platform of the Tron universe, which has a lot of like style, and because there's so much style, it disguises how deceptively little substance there is, and because it has a lot of heart. It doesn't like, it's not particularly well written sci-fi, but because you have a computer science background, you were able to actually like really let Tron be Tron in a way that I've I don't think anybody's ever done before, and it was super cool. Like I feel like I kind of learned some stuff because it's like I'm not that well equipped in that knowledge base, but it was really cool, like knowing that it was you did a really good job of taking a lot of complicated concepts, making them grounded, and then also letting them fit in with Tron continuity, like all the way down to, I mean, the special features in Tron Legacy, like the bonus short films and stuff, were like integral to you filled a gap in Tron continuity with this.
Yeah, Tron's always been pretty loose sci-fi. This soft sci-fi. This feels like you went in with an Allen wrench and sort of tightened it up.
Yeah.
Just kind of like it coalesced a little more densely in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think the only questions I have is because my memory on the original film, because I remember it was like, oh, so Flow was made by Alan 1. And Alan 1 was Alan from the first Tron who made Tron.
Alan Bradley.
Boxlighter.
Yes.
Yeah, Alan Bradley made Tron. Alan Bradley also made Flow. So we didn't learn much about where he is, who he is, what he has to do with all this, other than Alan 1 made Flow, and Flow's here to help save the day. So like where does Alan fit in terms of like this Air Force program? And like I'm sure, like, I mean, if he's working at the company and the company decides we're going to go work for the military, I'm sure he'd have a thing or two to say about that. But is that basically just the thrust of it? Like,
so as Kat mentioned, the story for this game was based off of one of the special features from the Tron Legacy Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. It was based off a short called The Next Day, and it's like a 10-minute long video that talks about the events that happen in between the two Tron movies. And one of the little bits that it mentions was that in 1997, there was a virus released by the Flynn Lives movement, and purportedly all it did was it just crashed PCs and it displayed the words Flynn Lives on the screen. And it was done as a way to raise awareness, and the creator of it, the alleged creator of it, basically just said that it was just an Easter egg. It was a prank, that was just intended to kind of build awareness for their movement. And it was something that was just displayed over it was like a 30 or 60 second bit of this special feature.
It was very short.
And when I was watching that, when I was thinking about like, okay, I want to run a story in the Tron universe, I was looking for ways that I could fit something in that fit with the continuity of the rest of the movies and everything. And so I came across that and I thought to myself, well, what if that was a little bit more than just a little Easter egg, a surprise little message that got put out there?
Yeah,
what if it was
guerrilla marketing?
Yeah, what if that was
just
just a distraction to correct a larger issue? And it was around the same time that the first version of Incom OS was released. And then I thought to myself, how can I work the MCP back into this as well? Because it's a classic Tron villain. It'd be kind of fun to like come up and, interact with them again. And originally my plan was for the MCP to be a good guy in the story, and for the virus to be an antagonistic virus. And you get pulled into the Tron universe because the MCP needs user help to track down and destroy this virus. But when I thought about it a little bit more, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if the MCP was actually resurrected by some lazy engineer that went back into the old code base that existed within Incom and said, let's take this master control program and just repurpose it to do one thing, and that is to control malware. But
why build when you could just rewrite?
But Ed Dillinger, who originally wrote the MCP and started it off as a chess program, was seeking to rise in the company of Incom, at Incom, and do more and more there. So he basically empowered it to start growing and taking over system access, and kind of like ingrained that desire to control everything into it, wrote that into it. And then, of course, the events of the first Tron movie played out. The MCP was gaining more and more power, started to, try to get into the Pentagon. And, Dillinger kind of like almost like panics and has realized that he's lost control of this thing. But fortunately, Kevin Flynn comes along and saves the day working with Tron, and they're able to destroy it. But I thought, what if that code base still existed out there and somebody repurposed it for malware control? They thought, it's fine. It'll be completely fine. It's all good. Not realizing that, this thing still is inherently wants to take over the world. And so when Alan Bradley realizes that it's back out there again and it's kind of doing its thing, it's too late for him to take action against it, because Incom OS is out there, it's successful, it's already installed on all these computers out in the world, and the security of the system is one of the main selling points of it. And so he goes to the board to say, like, this was repurposed code. We have to take it out of there. And they're basically like, no, we're making a lot of money, so we're not going to, turn this off. So he realizes that he has to do something to effectively, neuter the MCP and take away its ability to, its desire to expand and take control over functions. And so he writes the flow virus to go in and specifically modify the MCP to remove that desire for expansion from it. But then he needs a way to get it into the system, because he realizes that if it doesn't spread out and take everything immediately, it's going to, the MCP is going to inoculate itself against the flow virus.
Right.
And so he saw the best way of doing that was getting it directly into the Air Force's drone control program that they were currently working on and researching, because that was the biggest threat of what the MCP was currently trying to get into. He was able to kind of like monitor the expansion efforts of the MCP and see like what it was doing. And he saw that it was trying to get access to this drone control program, which could be used to drop missiles on humanity. And so he thought, well, if nothing else, I need to at least get it onto this Air Force server and deal with that. And then, figure out something else after that if I need to. And, it just so happens that the Air Force is going to have a presentation at E3 because they're trying to recruit gamers to come be remote drone pilots for them. And they're going to have this presentation set up, and there's going to be terminals there that have direct access to their servers. And so that's the best place for us to upload the virus. And then it's just a matter of getting somebody that has the credentials and the ability to go in and do that, and has plausible deniability, doesn't know what they're actually doing. At face value, this virus is just going to display a funky message and not really do much of anything. So if they get caught, they won't be able to, compromise Bradley's position within Incom and take out, his ability to actually do something about this problem. So that's kind of the long of it. That's a long explanation.
It makes sense.
But,
which is like it's so good. It's so tight. It makes so much sense, and it's like such a really neat backdoor into a more complicated story that all times out perfectly. Does raise the one question, which is which we kind of shot ourselves in the foot regarding a little bit, which is when the Predator drone simulation was activated, what did that really mean?
So that means that the Air Force was giving a presentation at E3 showing what the drone Predator program was all about.
That's what I hoped.
Yeah.
Demo mode.
That's what I hoped, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. And depending on how things played out, I was prepared for the MCP to threaten to drop a bomb on Los Angeles, but I was able to kind of just leave it like a vague threat, like.
I mean, like, because at that point, I would almost have it call its bluff. It's like, dude, you will literally incinerate yourself. Like, you would, like, are you?
Well, actually, but it already confronted that. It said, yeah, and I don't care because there's a bunch of me.
And then what? Then you're going to incinerate then what's your next threat? Once you pull the trigger on that, what else do you have?
Flo's in this console.
Right.
That's not a threat to any other console. That's not a threat to the things back at home base.
You can't keep. That's like saying that's like an abusive partner being like, I'll kill myself if you leave, and it's just like, all right, well, I'm going to call your bluff. And if you do it, then okay. And then but like if you then what? The same thing's going to happen in New York where it's like, I'll drop a bomb on New York. And it's just like, you drop a bomb on New York. Great. You've been at a certain point, you will have destroyed what you said you wanted to control. Like it's scorched earth.
But like it's hard to call that bluff because
no, I agree. It makes sense.
Like,
I'm just saying
because we don't know how vulnerable or invulnerable its system is.
No, I totally get that. It's just that if it ever started to threaten, like, hey, if you don't stop, I'm going to drop a bomb on you. I mean, like, dude, do you realize how illogical that is? That's like saying, if you don't stop trying to stop me, I'm going to start cutting fingers off my hand. It's just
man, it's Hydra. It's like one fall, two more take its place. Like that's what it is.
But at a certain point, like if your goal is to rule the world and then the world is ash, congratulations, you now earn a dirt ball.
Well, the reason for the missile, the threat of that was because the MCP wanted to destroy the virus. It realized what the virus was capable of doing and it was willing to do anything to destroy it. The only reason it didn't immediately jump to that and just like have one of the robot arms just come by and just squash the workstation was because it also realized that the flow virus in combination with fresh user code could use those two elements together to grant it the user powers that you all were using there in the system. And so that carrot was what was driving its motivations for allowing things to continue to play out. There was a huge payday if it could get all of you and sort of, take all of your code in a way that it could control. But it was a big gamble and ultimately, of course, it didn't pay off for it.
That totally makes sense. I just, even both from Doug and Brett's perspective, it's just like, I don't think it would ever actually pull the trigger on a bomb. I mean, it might, but I just don't think it would because I didn't understand. I knew that MCP wants to control the world because it's a computer. It wants to bring order to chaos. Like, I get that. But because there's no way that a computer could understand what the real world is like, it doesn't know what it's getting. That's like saying, I'll take door number 3. It's just like, all right, but do you want to, you can walk away with the car now, or you go behind what's behind door number 3, and it's choosing door number 3 every time. And it's just like, you say you want to control, that'd be like me saying I want to control Dimension X. It's like, what's in Dimension X? I don't know. But because it's a computer, it's making that illogical assumption that it can just control the next level. Like, oh, if I get user access and I'm a user, then I'll just control the user world. It's like, yeah, but real life doesn't.
Well, it's
work that way.
It's kind of vague. I mean, that was one place where I was not really sure how to, concrete I should get with when it comes to explaining what user powers are exactly.
Well, and I think that's fine because the MCP being the villain of the piece, just because it's wrong doesn't make it less of a threat. Because it's like, I want to control the world, and we're like, bro, you can't control the world. That does not change the fact that it is super dangerous and still willing to kill to get it.
Yeah.
It would be the same as a villain being like, I want to find the last unicorn. And it's just like, listen, man, it's Cyberpunk 2047. Unicorns don't exist. It's like, I will kill every last one of you until I get a unicorn. It's like, this motherfucker's crazy. That's what it's like. It was like negotiating that kind of thing where it's like, there's no way it could ever actually get what it wants. And if it ever finds that out, we might all be fucked. So it had that. I liked that it kind of can't be reasoned with in that sense. Which made it feel different than Skynet. Like, Skynet's just like, hey, we're gonna...
Yeah, it's a weird combination of, like, omnipotent and stupid. Like,
normally to say something's like it is both strong and weak, I'm like, well, that's just that doesn't make sense. But in the world of Tron and the idea of an MCP that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it finally wants to spill out into the real world, I don't know why, but for me that's fine because it is almost like a life form that's trying to go to an alien planet. Like it doesn't fully understand. It thinks it knows, but there's no way it actually could do that.
Right. It's a weird combination of both sentient and also bound by its programming.
It's like, I don't know if I would even say it was fully sentient in the way that Skynet is. Like, Skynet gets sentience and is like, oh, you tried to kill me? Well, I'm going to kill you.
Well, it's kind of like a tumor, right?
Yeah.
Like tumors are weird because they're pieces of ourselves that start growing independently.
Yeah.
And they'll grow teeth and hair and who knows what else because they it's easy to imagine a tumor accidentally becomes a real living boy. Like
that's been movies.
A tumescent Pinocchio. Like it's not good.
Yeah. But that's just my long-winded way of saying that, like, even though I thought MCP's goal was illogical, that still made it scary and not like that's a fucking flaw. It would don't want you to feel like that was the impression at all, because it was like I'm confused. Why does it think it wants this? But at the end of the day, didn't matter.
Well, it also it thinks different than you do.
Had the power
as well.
to kill.
I mean, it's a program, and you're a person.
Right. But in a good way, that's also like what made it different from other artificial intelligent bad guys. You know, like, again, Skynet being like, oh, it's self-preservation, and other, like any episode of Star Trek, it's all, no one wants to get unplugged. But here, it was a different enough goal where I felt like it felt different enough to be its own thing, which was cool, as opposed to just like, it literally wants to copy something else or whatever. But good.
Yeah, it was definitely tricky, sort of balancing telling a story that stays within the lane of Tron continuity, makes sense, is fun, and like is grounded in this sort of semi-realistic interpretation of how computers actually work. I kind of took that like Incom OS is a Linux-based system and injected a lot of concepts from Linux into it. Including like a lot of the names of like a lot of the programs that you encountered in it. I'm sure I got some things wrong. I'm not a full-time Linux user, but I've used Linux quite a bit. So,
yeah. And LaForge, it actually is a big-time Linux user, and he's trying to convert me to Linux, and he's doing a good job of like showing me all these convincing reasons. And the other night when I was recording RPG from scratch over at his place, he was giving me his latest pitch on the newest, version of Linux, and I'm just like, well, show me a bit. And he goes, okay, and he starts typing stuff and whatever, and he's showing all the windows coming up. And I'm like, actually, this is pretty good. Like, I'm digging this. And he's like, so let's say you want to install a package, right? So I'm going to get like he downloaded like the latest screenwriting software or whatever. And he's like, I'm going to install this package. I'm like, great. And to this day, it wasn't that long ago, but even now, I don't know what he was doing, but I saw him open up like a command panel and he started to type in words and he typed in sudo blah blah blah, and I was like, what the fuck, wait a minute. And I was like I know what that thing, I don't know what it is, but I recognize that. I didn't say anything to him. I'm just sitting there staring.
Got a mustache.
Yeah, my eyes go a little bit wide, like, whoa, so that's just for real, but I knew it was. I knew you were putting real shit in it, but it was like, I'm like, oh my god, like I'm actually seeing it in use now. And which was really funny. And so now if I
turns out City of Demons is an educational software.
And if I just wonder if I start using Linux and I start putting the feelers out and figuring it out, if it's just like, oh yeah, this is familiar, that's weird. Oh, I index, what the fuck? Like there's so many like weird, fun things. I'm
sure you have an interesting relationship with Who these days.
Yeah, like we'll see now. We'll have to
Poor
see.
Brett, affected in ways that he's gonna need some therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I think in from Brett's perspective, I think he would just tell himself, like, okay, what are my memories? If that seems outlandish, it didn't happen. Like, the idea of like, I know To Kill a Mockingbird is a book and a play and a movie. I didn't actually live it. It's not based on my life story. So if I have a memory of being in the 1930s American South, I just need to start remembering that as a dream and not as like... literally my life, which will be hard, but I think that's like a starting point.
But I'd say given that you've got this like emulation code in you now, you're probably about to become a very successful actor.
Actor or imitator?
I
There's
mean,
a difference.
is there? I mean,
Yeah.
in voice acting, all the best characters are just bad impressions of someone else.
But a performance of bringing your own shit to it. Now, granted, Brett's been through a lot of shit. There's a lot of life experience crammed into the several hours that he was in computer world. But I think depending on I can't imagine any of these functions have any spillover into the real world.
I don't know, man. I didn't get lobotomized exactly, so
No, and neither did I. But like,
Are you
well,
sure?
well, I got brain scrambled. So memories are weird. But I don't.
got the brainy scramblies.
Yeah, I don't. I wouldn't believe that might emulate in any way, unless it's like literally like what am I, Taskmaster now? Like
No, I mean, obviously
know.
these functions don't have one obviously, yeah, but you've reached into I mean, either way, Brett has more to pull from.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
you went to war.
Yeah, and we breaking people out of jail and all this shit, and then of course having to use the acting to sneak through like fascist security roadblocks. Like, no, I definitely think there's a lot to glean from it in terms of his personal professional life and stuff. But yeah, I don't think he went in as Brett and came out as Marlon Brando. But certainly, I think there's a lot of life experience gained.
Yeah,
in that
it's
short
not
amount of
really
time.
clear what comes back out of the grid when a user comes back out. In the original Tron movie, Kevin Flynn comes back out exactly as he went in, like in the same
Yeah.
position and everything. But he clearly has
Like
the memories of
mid-fall.
his time there. So, his
Yeah, and we didn't see them come out in
Right.
Legacy at all. We just see what's his face.
Because if we had, we would have seen whatever the hell, like how
where-
Korra
yeah,
manifested. so-
exactly. That's the thing I was looking forward to. It's like, oh, he's taking Korra out. I'm like, how is this going to work? And then it just cuts to them on a motorcycle. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I just what happened?
Well,
How did
and,
they get there? Like,
and Clue was
How-
like ready to bring his like carrier ship into the real world, and I always
Army.
think like,
yeah,
would that thing just be able to like
Would that
fly
work?
in our world, or like, yeah,
or would it
there's
crash because it doesn't have?
there's
it doesn't
gravity
have
here
a,
in
you
our
know,
world,
Like,
like real gravity.
yeah, and we have to use a GPS. The
Right.
grid doesn't have GPS. The grid. There's so many questions, but whatever. And that's the thing with Korra. Is she still a program? Like, could she walk over to a computer and do shit, or is she in a living
Yeah.
body now? And that's why I wanted
Does
to
she
know
have
the
a
movie to
biological
find out like what
body?
the fuck.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
I would love with a passion to read whatever official scripts were getting kicked around and all the different times that Tron 3's been has almost happened. It's been in like tentative pre-production so many times in the past, however long it's been. I'd love to see those. I want to know what they're thinking about.
probably just more like special effects extravaganzas. They start with the assumption of what ride can we make off of this at Disney, and then let's just build a movie around it.
Well, yeah, but also they've made rides of it at Disney so seldom. It's only recently that Tron has retroactively it underperformed, so I guess we won't do anything with it. Now they're like, but people are nostalgic for it again, so I guess we'll start adding it back into the parks.
yeah. Like, and how long has it taken them to build it stateside? Like, they built the other one in Disney China or something, and
Yeah,
now it's
like I don't know, 10 years ago maybe,
Yeah.
and like now we're getting something. I guess I don't know.
because the ride's popular. People like it. It's like one of the most
Yeah,
Like,
all
it's
I
the
know is
fastest roller
when they
coasters.
rethemed Test Track, it came very close to being Tron, and then they're like, nope, it's still Test Track. Okay.
Gosh.
Anyhow, just thank you. This was like just a really incredible ride. Like that the tense discussion with Eric is one of the highlights of any role playing game I've ever had in terms of like interpersonal stuff. Like that was a beast, and the fun and mayhem of this adventure has been so great. I'm not sure, like I don't really have a lot of sci-fi role play under my belt, really. Like, so
Oh.
this is pretty rad.
Yeah, other than Paranoia and Star Wreck, which are both very parody heavy.
Yeah, they're both very
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah,
I think I've.
it's got a little silly.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've
That's
ever
we're
done
silly.
like a sci-fi game before. My stuff's all like fantasy usually, fantasy based. But yeah, this was yeah, it was a great privilege to be able to run this game with you all, and I'm so glad that you all gave me a chance to do this. And Doug, I hope it was fun for you to kind of be on the opposite side of the experience this time.
Yeah. No, it was good. And like I was telling Kat, we were doing a Lightning Dogs thing, and I'm like during our hangout, I was like, it was like, oh, we're gonna be recording our the finale to this thing soon. We didn't tell them what it was because we just said it was a surprise RPG. And you were like, how do you feel about it, Doug? And I'm like, look, I'm having a great time. I like being a player, but I think I prefer being a GM. and I wanted to be very clear that that is no shade whatsoever. That's just that in the world. And then I said, coincidentally, I used like a Brett perspective, which is kind of weird that I jumped to that immediately. It's like on the world.
Is it weird or does it make complete sense?
Well, because I'm thinking of the game that we were playing probably, and I'm like, in the world of being on stage, instead of being an actor, I prefer to be, the person moving the light, or doing the stage direction, being like, okay, get ready, 3, 2, 1, get on stage now, being I much prefer stage manager than performer, but I think that's true in real life too. But whatever, that's how I reasoned it at the time. But I'm anxious to get back in and get to work on more stuff. But I did that whirlwind of not knowing where it's going, and everything definitely was great.
Do you think you've gleaned any understanding from this now being on the opposite side of the experience?
I wouldn't say any new understanding so much as wonderful confirmation. Like the idea, like the idea that it is possible to get so wrapped up in the immediacy of the mundane, well, quote unquote mundane normal side, that when the other shoe drops and when the other thing comes up, you are completely ill-equipped, not prepared, but that truly does add the pressure that you would be feeling in that moment, as opposed to, let's play a Tron game. In the real world, you're this, you're this, you're this. It's not the same.
It's not.
But going through that definitely was like a great confirmation, because, I'm going in to enjoy it. I'm not going in to try and learn things as much as play the game and have a great time, which we did. So
awesome.
I'd say full success.
Well, it was a delight to play with the two of you, and your all's interactions and some of the special moments from this game are some that I will always remember and always look back on with fondness. So I love the characters of Gwen and Brett and the time that we got to spend together. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, yes. We'll do a Genesis listening party.
For sure. All right. Thank you all.